Alright, I'm going to do a video on why post-racial eugenics does not have IQ as the end-all be-all. A lot of white nationalists and even these alt-right people like Jared Taylor have this concept of worshiping Asians and Jews. Jared Taylor loves the Jews and he loves the Asians because Jews allegedly on average have higher IQs than Caucasians, but let's dig into that a little bit. This is from, the name of the website is iq-research.info. Okay, so here are some countries. The United States has an IQ of 98. Israel has an IQ of 95. Sweden has an IQ of 99. Mexico of 88. Hong Kong of 108. Italy of 102. India of 82. Iraq of 87. Peru of 85. Belize of 84. Bolivia of 87, and Ecuador of 88. Now, somebody wanted to point out how Hispanics allegedly, he believed that Hispanics had the same IQs as blacks. This is not true. Also, you have to understand there's a differentiation between what type of Hispanic someone is. There are Hispanics that are almost 100% Amerindian, such as in Mexico and areas like that, where they're over 80% Amerindian on average, and other places where they're mostly Caucasian, such as Argentina and Uruguay, places like that. Hispanic is a linguistic classification, but let's get into that. Let's look at what the black IQs are. So we have Niger at 69, Ethiopia at 69, Chad at 68, Somalia at 68, Swaziland at 68, Haiti at 67. Now, what you have to understand is when you see a country with a 10% black population or more, like the United States, that brings down the average IQ. So our average Caucasian IQ may still be around 100. I didn't look into that. But what you have to take into consideration is some of these countries. Now, people can say that, well, Mexico's IQ is only 88. And the United States has an IQ of 99, which is 11 points higher. Wow. Okay. Well, what you have to take into consideration is what are the other factors that are leading to the decline of the white civilizations all over the world. One of them is our ridiculous altruistic attitude toward everybody that's anti-us. For some reason, we have this idea that if you bring in enough people that hate you, that somehow this will magically make your country stronger and better. These other countries, these South American countries, do not have this delusion. So this is not connected to the IQ. And in the same sense, you have nations such as Hong Kong and China and Japan and these countries with exceptionally high IQs. Not quite gifted on average, but damn near gifted. They're about 10 points or so below gifted. I believe giftedness starts at 120 or 121. But these countries lived in a, generally speaking, very primitive state until influence from Western nations such as Holland and Germany and the United States and Great Britain and other countries like that. They were in a relatively primitive state. And then on top of that, such as in China, the primary reason China turned to communism was the mistreatment by the British. The British, on average, have a generally high IQ. But what my point is, and for example, India, for example, according to this, has an IQ of 82. Now, I don't want to sound like a liberal, but you have to look at who's being tested, how are they being tested, and like, for example, Raven's progressive matrices is an IQ test that doesn't require any reading ability or anything like that. You just simply pick what comes next. Whereas the Binet-Stanford IQ test, or Stanford-Binet IQ test, I forget how to say it, is not, you need to know how to read, or at least how to understand the language that the test is being proctored in. So why do I not see IQ as all that important? As I stated, you see the South American nations holding on to their culture, holding on to their identity and whatnot. And you see Western Europe, Sweden, Norway, the United States, even southern, like such as Italy, Spain, you see them bringing in everybody that's not like them. Now, multiculturalism is not a bad thing. I don't even care if it's an extremely moderate Islamic multiculturalism. such as some Moroccans and people like that, are very tolerant. What the problem is when you're bringing in people that are radically against you, which is what we've been doing in the United States and in Western Europe and in Canada and, of course, in Great Britain for a very, very long time. And this results in filling your country with people that are being subsidized to outbreed you on your dollar and hate you. And this kooky belief that this is somehow going to promote your country in the future. One, you're genetically being wiped off the face of the earth, and number two, your country will not retain its European flavor. So as much as white supremacists and alt-righters don't like my idea of a Pax Americana or a Pan-American attitude, they're not looking at the whole picture. Before IQ, far, far before IQ is survival. Survival is rule number one. And regardless of what your IQ is, if you're not surviving and you're not adapting to the stresses of the given environment, and you're making things worse for yourself, as white people are doing, as they did in South Africa, as they did in Zimbabwe, as they're doing in the United States, as they're doing everywhere, clearly the IQ can't be that important to overall survival if it is, don't get me wrong, I'm not downplaying IQ, but the fact of the matter is, this delusional state, this suicidal ideology is seemingly unique to Caucasians, but we are bringing these folks in and eliminating ourselves. And this is why I take up the idea of post-racial eugenics. Yes, the white race will cease to exist, but it will cease to exist one way or another the way things are going. The other way, the post-racial eugenics way, the best of all people will ideally be put forth into the next generation through post-racial eugenics, gene editing, and genetic modification. And that is the huge difference, desire to wipe out genetic disease and create a super race of people out of the best of the other races of people.